Hi guys. For the last couple of days, media bias and liberal hypocrisy have been on full display. During the final months of the election, the media was constantly asking Donald Trump whether he would accept the results of the election. They never asked Hillary Clinton that one time. Several times they asked Trump, will you accept the results of the election? And I believe one time he said, yes, I'll accept the results if I win, which we all know he did. Hillary didn't come out on the night of the election and make a public concession speech. She waited till the next day to do that. I don't know if that's ever been done before. It's traditional that they always come out the night of and make the concession speech. She did give him a phone call, and she was gracious in her concession speech, which is pretty traditional also. But thousands and thousands of protesters have been rioting, destroying property, peacefully protesting the election of Donald Trump. And it's been in at least 7 cities, major cities in the United States. And the media just fails to see the hypocrisy of who is not accepting the results. There have been 4 that I know of Republican campaign headquarters that I personally know of that have been vandalized, set on fire, shot at, spray painted during and shortly after the results of the election. You never hear about Republicans doing that. It's always Democrats. It's always the Republicans who are being attacked. During the elections, as WikiLeaks proved, there were groups that were actually sending and paying protesters to go to the Trump rallies and cause violence and pick fights, start fights, and a lot of people were seriously injured at the Trump rallies, and it was not the Trump people causing the violence or inciting the violence in any way. People were bussed in to do that. In Chicago, when Trump tried to have a rally, they were completely shut down by violent protesters. It was actually a riot. The media called it protests. There was a house very near where I live that had a very large Trump sign on the porch of the house. The house, I haven't heard the final results yet. The house was shot 10 or 12 times. I haven't heard the results if it was an actual small caliber rifle or if it was a pellet gun of some kind. I never heard the final results of that. But it is just so ridiculous. Do you remember back in 2008 when Obama was elected and thousands of Republicans took to the streets protesting and rioting and burning things? No, you don't, because it didn't happen. Do you remember in 2012 when Obama was reelected, thousands of protesters taking to the streets, burning things, rioting, destroying private property? No, you don't, because it never happened. Republicans are responsible adults who have jobs that we go to every day to pay taxes, and we don't do this. The media will never report this, and people all over the world are shocked and upset that Donald Trump is elected the United States president. And I don't blame them for being. I probably would be too if I was thousands of miles away seeing the biased news reports. People, thankfully, saw through it in the United States. There were constant attacks by the media. The media was so biased, and everybody finally saw through it and saw that they were not questioning anything about Hillary Clinton. Working in television, I have seen so much behind the scenes that I can't really talk about because for fear of losing my job. Just believe me, everyone I work with, not everyone, but the vast majority of people that I work with are Hillary supporters, very liberal, and I see behind the scenes stuff and I read behind the scenes stuff, and believe me, the media was entirely behind Hillary Clinton. for anyone who's watching this in the UK, Ireland, Germany, anywhere else in Europe or around the world, believe me, what you have seen from the press is very slanted, absolutely not true. It's just absolutely amazing. When Donald Trump held rallies, he would have 10, 15, 20,000 people show up, and they were only announced on Twitter. I don't use Twitter. I've never used Twitter. But Trump would tweet he's going to be in such and such a city tomorrow, and 10, 15, 20, 25,000 people would show up. Hillary Clinton had to have Jay-Z, Beyonce, Lady Gaga, John Bon Jovi, Bruce Springsteen, and they weren't turning out those kind of numbers at their rallies, even with the major star power behind her. And people, the pundits were saying at the time, well, you can't base the election on the amount of crowds you're drawing. That just doesn't make sense. And I knew from the beginning that the polls were not accurate. I did not anticipate the major landslide that we saw from Trump, but I knew from the beginning the polls were biased. And if you read the polling data, which most of the polls would supply, it would say that they sampled 40%. It would say that they sampled 40% Republicans, 60% Democrats, and the numbers were either tied or within 1 or 2 points. And I commented to several people on YouTube, this doesn't make sense. If the numbers are tied and they're sampling 60% Democrats, that means Trump wins. And this is exactly what happened. It's exactly what happened. The other thing they were doing is they were sampling major cities, New York, Chicago, Miami, big cities, not sampling the rural areas. And I got to be fair, it's not easy to sample the rural areas. It's much easier to take samples in the big population centers. It's just amazing to me that more people didn't see this. 2 polls, 2.5 polls got it correct. The Los Angeles Times poll had Trump ahead the entire time, with a week here and there where Hillary was slightly in the lead. IBD, Investors Business Daily, had Trump winning. And there was one other one, which I cannot remember right off, which was a Republican-leaning poll, and so that got totally tossed because they have a Republican bias, but they had Trump winning. I don't think anybody had Trump winning by as big as he did. Hillary won the popular vote. So far, they have not actually counted every single vote. Hillary actually won the popular vote, but our American system is designed with the Electoral College to prevent people in the big cities, which at the time were New York, Philadelphia. Now it includes Chicago, Los Angeles, major cities all across the continent, that to prevent them from dictating politics. It's a brilliant system. The Electoral College is designed to spread the election results out over the entire country so people that live in the small towns can have a say and not be dictated to by the major cities. But when you see these riots on television, ask yourself, these are the same people that were calling Donald Trump whiny and making fun of him because they thought he would not accept the election results. Look who's not accepting the election results. Look who it is. Republicans have always accepted the election results. The only 2 elections in my lifetime that I can remember being contested were the major fiasco in Florida when Al Gore was protesting the results of the vote when he clearly had lost. They had recount after recount after recount. The Florida courts were very, very lenient in letting them recount more than they should have been allowed to by law, and they gave them extensions on the deadline that are dictated by law. They still lost. Finally, they grudgingly accepted the results. The only other one was when John Kerry lost to G.W. Bush. Ohio was in question. They did not accept the results. They waited and delayed until Ohio was thoroughly counted and recounted before they accepted the results. The media will not remind you of these things. Have you heard the media talking about that? I haven't. So when you hear people complaining about Donald Trump, he's some kind of a monster, don't believe it. Wait and see for yourself. Democrats just love to call Republicans racist with no basis in fact. In fact, if you look at the history of the Republican Party, look at the history of the Democrat Party. The Democrats are the racists. The Democrats spun off the KKK. The Democrats were all about suppressing black votes. Look this stuff up. It's just shocking to me. All right, guys, as always, please like, share, and subscribe. And think. Use your brain. Watch what's happening.